It's Friday, October the 4th, 2024. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world, including the economy and the state of the economy. And we'll be talking about that. And of course, we've got other things that we'll be talking about as well. But a lot is definitely going on in the world. And people are definitely talking about a number of these things that are taking place, including the fact that apparently the economy is on the rebound. At least that's what folks are saying, and all along those lines. So we'll definitely see whether our panelists agree or disagree with what the economists are reporting and whether they are in agreement with this whole notion or not in agreement with the notion of what's taking place, because definitely we're hearing a lot of people that are talking about that whole notion. India's supreme leader Khamenei delivers a rare sermon in 5 years and reaffirms his support for Hamas and Hezbollah. So definitely, Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei defends his strike on Israel in a Tehran speech, and Beirut strikes target potential new Hezbollah chief, according to what Israeli officials are saying. So definitely lots going on there in the Middle East. And a giant explosion was seen near a Beirut airport. So central Beirut hit as Israel vows a very strong response to Iran. And IDF says over 250 Hezbollah operatives were killed in southern Lebanon ground offensive. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. So the Israeli airstrike killed 18 people in occupied West Bank. So that's definitely something that people are talking about. And definitely the Middle East is very much in the news. India's government says that criminalizing marital rape is excessively harsh. So there is the notion there that they're saying no need to criminalize marital rape, and that's something that's going on in their Supreme Court. So, according to the Hindu, marital relations must be exempt from the rape provision. So, definitely that is something going on there, and there are some folks, including in that country, that are saying that striking down the marital rape exception could destabilize the marriages, according to what's going on in that area. And at least 78 are dead and dozens missing after a ferry disaster in the DR Congo. So definitely that is something else going on after that boat capsized in eastern Congo and all along those lines. So definitely that's what's going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Lebanese state electricity company says employees and whole family were killed by Israel. So that's something, like I said, the Middle East is very much having a lot of things going on in that way. And a gunman burst into a Mexican drug rehab center and killed 4 men and wounded 2 others. And apparently, there were 12 bodies bearing the signs of torture found with a cartel message in Mexico. So they were found with a cartel message there in Mexico. So it definitely looks like uh, those 12 bodies were found in Mexico's Guanajuato state in latest cartel violence. So yeah, the cartel violence is still continuing in that part of the world as well. So, like I said, lots going on, and a lot of people are talking about a number of these conflicts around the world and in the globe. And of course, we've got things here in the U.S., including an election that's about just a month and a day away. So, definitely that is something that folks are paying attention to as well. And Obama is to campaign for Harris in Pennsylvania and other key states. So Obama will campaign with Harris in key swing states next week. And it looks like he's going to be kicking off a battleground state blitz for Harris next week. And that kickoff will be in Pennsylvania, which is definitely one of the swing states. And some evidence in the Adams case involves classified material, according to what the U.S. is saying. And 69% of New York residents believe Mayor Adams should resign, according to the latest Marist poll. So definitely, but there are some folks that are saying that the Supreme Court might get Eric Adams off the hook. So definitely, it looks like like I said earlier, the huge majority of New Yorkers want Mayor Eric Adams to resign following his historic indictment. And definitely, the Jack Smith case is still going on as well with that whole election interference case and all along those lines. I was actually reading earlier today that I think that there is some notion that President Trump will not give up his medical records, even though some people are saying that he's in good medical shape. But should he win the election, he would be the oldest person to come into office after the fact and all along those lines. So he'd be the oldest. He would beat Biden if he should win and then leave after a 4-year term and all along those lines. But yeah, some folks are wanting his health records released, but they're also wanting the health records released of Kamala Harris and others as well. But definitely, it does seem like right now there is. I think there were some concerns around former President Trump with his cholesterol and maybe his weight because he might be near the obesity level and all along those lines. But that is something that the doctors were saying as well. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And it looks like Liz Cheney blasted Trump at the Harris event that she attended, and the Kamala Harris rally crowd cheers both Mike Pence and Dick Cheney. So definitely says Steely Liz Cheney at Harris's side calls it our duty to reject Trump. So definitely that's something going on as well. And speaking of the Trumps, Melania Trump says she supports abortion rights, putting her at odds with the GOP. And she says, I'm not going to tell you what to do as she breaks the silence over I'm not going to tell you what to do. Trump breaks silence over abortion rift with Melania. So definitely it looks like she is definitely in her memoir being very passionate about her support for abortion rights. So definitely that's something going on as well. And Larry Hogan says neither one of these two candidates has earned my vote in the presidential race. And that's something he said a few days ago and everything, but it is definitely an uphill battle for him in the Maryland Senate race and everything. And he said GOP Senate candidate Larry Hogan says he won't vote for Trump despite Trump's endorsement of him. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. And the former Memphis cops have been found guilty surrounding the Tyree Nichols fatal beating. So 3 former officers were acquitted of the most serious charges in the Tyree Nichols death and everything. But definitely, it looks like the verdicts were announced in the Tyree Nichols federal trial, and ex-officers were taken into custody. So definitely, it looks like those 3 ex-Memphis officers were found guilty of witness tampering in that fatal beating. So definitely, that'll be interesting to see what goes on. And Elon Musk said he will attend the Trump rally in Pennsylvania at the site of the July assassination. So at least as Donald Trump returns to Butler, Pennsylvania, apparently there was one name that he did not mention, which was Thomas Crooks and everything. So we'll see how this all plays out and what goes on in that sense. So definitely, and of course, the Supreme Court, which I know Nick is always interested in, has got their full docket of things that they're going to be dealing with. So they're going to hear arguments on ghost guns, transgender rights, and more during their 2024 term. So justices are also to hear cases on drug tests and ex worker ADA rights. So definitely there might even be some point cases looming as the Supreme Court returns as well. So point access, that might even be involving Pornhub in North Carolina and everything. But there's a number of things that are going to be coming up before the Supreme Court. And Mayorkas has warned of low funds for hurricane release after FEMA spent a lot of money on migrant situation as well. So definitely there are some people that are worrying that this could be a cause of concern, is particularly if more hurricanes and more storms come, and we are only in the middle of the season. I think the season goes till around November, so we still got a few weeks to go. And definitely, if there's not the funds to help those folks, that could be problematic as well. As a matter of fact, they're saying Gulf of Mexico disturbance likely to bring heavy rain to Tampa Bay, and Florida should brace for a major rain event as the folks in the weather centers are monitoring the Gulf of Mexico for tropical developments. So definitely, it looks like there might be some poor bad weather in that area. And last but not least, before I bring in my fellow folks and everything, it looks like Trump is losing ground with women on the economy, according to polls that are out there. So it's saying that Harris is gaining ground among women on the economy, and swing state voters want energy answers from Trump and Harris and more domestic drilling. So definitely that's something that is going on there. We'll see whether folks are glad or not glad, because there was some positive news economically, because it looks like the U.S. economy added a whopping 254,000 jobs last month. And that is definitely something that folks will be glad to hear about. And the stock market climbed after jobs reports, massive beat, and the unemployment rate dipped, and all in that way. But like I said, I've got Nick Palveda, and I know he's a big person that loves the economy and everything. And I've also got Rick Rosner hanging out there somewhere but I've also got Dan Worthington, and of course, got Jacoby out and about. He must be our man in the field today, and all along those lines. And we'll see what Rick's got going on as well. But what's going on? We'll see when Rick bounces back in. But what is your take on the economy? It looks like we have some good economic reports where they're saying there's some job increases and that there is some unemployment dips and everything. And of course, we still got this campaign. It's only a month and a day till the election. So, how are you doing over there in Spain? Have you already got your absentee ballot in?
We're working on printing up the absentee ballot, and we all know that it's all fraud, but that's absolutely not true. That's just a complete Republican myth. I wish they would stop it. But let me tell you what is good. The economy has pushed the euro against the dollar, the euro down. So right now, when we came over, it was 89 cents, and it means something when you're changing money. 89 cents per, you get 89 euros per every dollar. But let me tell you the real thing that happens, okay? If you go to these exchange places, they're supposed to give you like 89 cents on the dollar, but then you got to add their commission, which is another 10%. So you get like not 89 cents, you get 80 or 78 cents, like no kidding. In other words, you basically get ripped off by the commission dweller. And this is something, the reason why they need to teach financial literacy to people, because what happens is when you do currency exchanges, you can get screwed up to 20%, 10%, which is normal because of the exchange, another 10% because you got screwed by the currency manager. Now, we move our money from another bank to another bank so we don't get screwed that bad. You're always going to get screwed, but just please, not that bad. We don't want haircuts and shaves. We get scalpings over here. Now, another thing they don't teach is about real estate. See, we learn as we go. Over here, they have, you wouldn't believe it, they have, if you go to rent a property, what they do is the landlord or the real estate agent tries to charge you 10% as a tenant. So if you want to rent a place for, let's say, $1,000 a month, the agent goes, "Where's my agency fee?"
So you're actually paying like $1,100 instead of the
No, Mark. They want it up front now. So what happens is, to get into the property, if you want something for $1,000 a month, you pay them the $1,000 plus $1,000 agency fee plus $2,000 more as what they call a deposit. They want double the rent, and they're notorious for keeping your deposit once you leave the property. They go like this to you. So what happens is, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's capitalism at its best. Okay.
Well, speaking of capitalism,
what's beautiful is, without the law, how they screw, especially foreigners. Now, of course, the reason we're still homeless here is we are not falling for that system. So we're basically negotiating.
Yeah, but just really quickly, speaking of that, and we did not get to this, but I'll get to it now. I know some people were concerned, and it may have even been concerned there in where you are now in Spain and everything about the supply chain, but apparently it was a quick strike because apparently the U.S. ports have reopened after the dock workers ended their strike. So a massive strike in the U.S. East and Gulf ports has already ended. I'm not sure what they agreed to or what they did not agree to, but they have agreed to suspend the strike. That doesn't mean they won't start it back later, but right now they've suspended it.
It didn't even affect anything here. Rick has his hand up, so see what he's got to say.
Yeah, so looking at the polls and looking at the news, the 250,000 new jobs, the strike is over. I got to ask, how much does anything affect the polls or the vote over the next month? Because, and Carl, the guy we had, our guest, the polling expert who was our guest on Monday, said this is a different election from the 2016 election because there were 15% undecided. So if you look at the polls right now, and if you look at this panel, I mean, it's just 6 people with their faces here, but nobody's changing their vote. Nobody's undecided here. And if you look at the polls, it's 5%. It's 3% undecided. It's very few people who have yet to make their decision.
Yeah, it's the people who are going to decide the election are the least informed voters in the country in certain key states. But the thing is, the economy does make a difference. Having a boost in the jobs report, and
so Trump has taken the lead.
The market is up, which is good for people who have money in the market. You know, all that affects those marginal people because some of them go, hey, my pocketbook's doing good. I'll vote for Kamala Harris. So right now, I'd say she's probably odds-on favor to win, unless something happens in the next 30 days.
But hold on a second,
So
because I saw
Trump has
Shaquille.
taken the lead so far in a number of places. He's taken the lead in Virginia now in the polls. The union that was striking for the dock workers, they've thrown their support behind Trump. So I'm not sure why anybody would think that the market going up for one day is going to make everyone go, oh wow, I better vote for Kamala Harris after they're complaining about cost of living pressures.
But Shaquille,
And I do have to apologise to our audience from yesterday's show, because I was really taken aback. I was thinking, why are the Democrats on this show, Progressive TV is what we should change our names to, why are they going so hard in defence of let's not turn the tragedy of Hurricane Helene into a political issue? I like the whole, even afterwards, I called Dan. I said, what's going on? I mean, they've hammered George Bush about it. They've hammered everyone else. Why are they carrying on this? What have the Democrats screwed up? Obviously, the Democrats have screwed something up, and there's a bit of a lag before I get to see the news here. What was it? Oh, FEMA ran out of money because FEMA spent all the money on immigrants to the United States.
That's untrue. That's untrue.
Well, and so funny to hear.
That is not true, Shaq. That is not true.
Jacoby, don't interrupt.
Thank you. And so funny to hear that one of the producers of MSNBC gets caught at a restaurant or a bar, and he says, well, we always go with the progressive talking points, and whatever Kamala Harris's message of the day is the one that we'll push out across our network, only for me to then go back and rewatch yesterday's show and go, oh, so I got a hold of the Democrat talking points of the day. And now I understand that what the people on our show yesterday were doing was repeating verbatim the talking points released by the Democrats to the media, and then people on this show repeating the same thing. So, well done, guys.
So
well done. My apologies to the audience for not picking that up yesterday. To answer the question, Donald Trump is going to win this election by a landslide, and I think that Kamala Harris will struggle to even hit 200 electoral college votes.
So just to point out, one, dismissing everyone's view that you disagree with by saying you just got the talking points shows how weak your argument is. Number one, and Rick can actually look this up because I'm not. Don't interrupt. You told me not to. So he's interrupting me, Dan. So don't even try that. So again, Rick can actually look this up, and he was actually saying the same thing. Dan, are you just going to laugh over top? Can you go on mute? You asked me not to interrupt, and I'm not interrupted. I didn't interrupt you, so let's play fair here. So again, Rick can point this out just as I was pointing it out earlier. What you said about, oh, they're spending money, they're wasting their money on immigrants, that's untrue. They're different pools of money. They don't actually reallocate the money from FEMA to deal with undocumented immigrants. That is a flat out lie. Also, in terms of actually, stop. No, it isn't. So stop that. Please stop interrupting. This is why we have problems. You guys beg me to not interrupt. You guys beg me to not interrupt. I stop. And then what do you do when I talk? You guys are both talking over me. And this is why we have a problem. Yet you're saying it's okay for you to do, but I can't. So getting back to my point, as Rick again can point out, different pools of money, that's the way government works. You don't reallocate. In terms of not making it a political issue, Dan yesterday had a great soundbite in the show. And a great soundbite throughout the show, talking about how it should be focused on actually bringing people together because people are in dire need right now. He gave great options about donating to churches and having the churches help out, as well as these other individual places. This is what we needed. What Donald Trump did was he went for a photo op, and Marcus pointed out multiple times, built a stage on top of a broken down furniture place, talked about, oh, well, I'd love to come here and shop for furniture. And then on top of that, complained and lied, literally lied to gain political points that people were not receiving the help when the mayors, the governors, and even the local officials were saying the federal government was legitimately helping. So when you lie like that, that puts other individuals' lives in danger. That also creates conspiracies where people will not help out the Red Cross or donate to these places that are trying to help these individuals live. This is why you don't make it political. And when you want to push back and talk about, oh, well, we want to do these talking points, you forget that Donald Trump tried to withhold actual federal aid to blue states because they did not vote for him. They had to count and persuade him to actually release aid. Stop, don't interrupt. So then also and that was really big with the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico, because he wanted to withhold aid because the mayor said something bad about him. So this is why we don't play political games with tragedies and disasters. However, it became fair game for Republicans who want to defend Trump rather than going back to what Dan said yesterday, that we should all come together and pray for these people, help these people, because they're in dire straits. But no, you did what you always do, Shaq. Dan ended the show great yesterday, and you wanted to end the show your way so you complain about Democrats don't do. No, it's a disaster. Let's help the people and not sit here and come up with ideas of why one individual, the Democrats, no. The Republican mayors, the Democrat mayors, the conservatives are all trying to help. They need help.
Yeah.
All right. So Shaq made 2 points. I want to talk about both of them. And my knowledge about FEMA funding and all that is incomplete. But what I think I know is that victims of Hurricane Helene can apply for instant $750 in fast funding for immediate needs. And conservatives have been saying, well, you only get $750 because all the other money's been spent on migrants. And I don't believe that's true. I think $750 is a fast first payment, and you're eligible for further money in the days and weeks and months to come once the government knows people need money right away for diapers and food and immediate necessities. Well, hold on, because let me do the other point. Now, the point that MSNBC is liberal and making people dumber, that comes from James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, who does hidden camera interview. He takes people who work for some place like Planned Parenthood, and he takes them out, he gets them liquored up. You can see right in the video that they're drinking in a bar, and he gets idiots who work for some, like in this case, MSNBC, drunk, and goads them into saying some unfortunate shit. And O'Keefe and Veritas have been prosecuted. They were prosecuted in the case when they did it to people from Planned Parenthood, and this was investigated in 13 states. No charges against Planned Parenthood, and O'Keefe and Veritas were prosecuted and found guilty in California and charged in Texas. And this is promulgated by the Gateway Pundit, which is itself a bullshit messenger. So your MSNBC thing is from bullshit.
Let me respond to a few things. And Jatomi, if you could have the courtesy of muting yourself if you're not going to speak, so we don't have to listen to all the background noise of the motor vehicles driving past you, that would be wonderful. Rick, yesterday's show, everybody except for Dan got a chance to respond to the comments about the debate. And then before Dan got a chance to do that, the show turned to the hurricane and the situation in North Carolina. So by the time that Dan finally got a chance to respond, what could he do? he obviously had to say the nice things that you've got to say about the people that are suffering in North Carolina. And it was very difficult for him or for I to go back to the point that he was denied the opportunity to respond to. Second, yes, Project Veritas did make some videos or obtain some footage to do with the organ donations or the body donations of aborted fetuses. And some of what they were saying was misleading in my personal view. But once again, I find it interesting that when it comes to Fox News hosts and producers being caught out promoting misinformation or disinformation or whatever you want to call it about Dominion counting systems and other things to do with the 2020 election, that can't be questioned. They're absolutely perfect, and 100% of the time, that's absolutely correct. That right-wing media was absolutely wrong. When it comes to left-wing media, well, they were tricked into saying stuff, and the sources offered a bullshit, and and this is the sort of stuff that I'm talking about. The amount of incredible bias that goes on, and from people that I think should know better. That the fact that when Republicans sat there and they look at Trump, and they look at that first debate with Kamala Harris, and they go, yeah, look, Trump didn't do that well. It's a bit of a problem. Maybe he should have a second debate. We're not sure. Et cetera, et cetera. The polls seem to have changed. They acknowledge it. When Democrats have a bad debate with the J.D. Vance, Tim Walz, you come up with the most ridiculous thing. Oh, he's got a beard. Well, maybe that's a sign of toxic masculinity. I mean, it's so ridiculous and so transparent. And unless you're actually a progressive, I think that the overwhelming majority of people, because most people are not into politics, I think the overwhelming majority of people listen to that kind of talk and roll their eyes. And I think that, and look, I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. I'm no clairvoyant. But I think that when you're starting to see the polls change in Virginia, you're starting to see the polls change in New Hampshire, you're starting to see New Jersey could still be in play. You're seeing the Democrats lose support amongst unions. They haven't got the endorsement of the International Fire Union, et cetera, et cetera. They've lost support amongst blacks. They still have the majority support, but they've lost the support amongst blacks. They've lost support with Hispanics. They've lost support with college-educated white men. They've lost support with women. They've lost support across almost every key demographic. And all the Dems want to do is to come up with excuses, and it's everybody else's fault, and it's nothing that they could possibly be doing because everybody else has no credibility. Well, okay, good luck. Good luck with that.
Shaquille, hold on a second. First off, the toxic masculinity quote, because I was actually the one that brought that up.
Well, Dan's had his hand up.
I know I'm on Dan. I'm going to get to Dan. I was just getting ready to counter, because the toxic masculinity quote actually came from Carol Lieberman, who was our guest also in the past and everything. And she's the one, if I remember correctly, that brought that up. So it wasn't necessarily a Democratic or a Republican that brought it up. It's one of those people that do analysis, and it's just stuff to do.
Yeah. So this was fair and impartial analysis, and him having a beard is toxic masculinity. So, him speaking confidently, well, liars speak really confidently too. So him speaking confidently and being well polished, that's an indication that he's actually a dishonest person, right? But if he wears a nice suit, well, that's terrible. But if Democrats wear a nice suit, well, look how fantastic they look. Do you think that if J.D. Vance had a shave tomorrow, that all of a sudden Democrats are going to go, well, thank goodness he got rid of the toxic masculinity? No, they're just going to the next thing that they're going to attack him on. It's so ridiculous.
Dan, I'm just saying that the report actually came from somebody that was claiming to do it in a neutral standpoint and everything, because like I said, that's what I was reporting on yesterday and everything. So I was just giving a report from somebody else, and they brought the issue.
Yes, I know. The neutral standpoint that just happened to comply with progressive talking points. Yeah,
but to say that's a progressive talking point, I don't think it's a fair statement and everything, because it came up.
So Fox doesn't say anything about toxic masculinity. MSNBC did, right? And so just so happens that this neutral person from their own mind just happened to come up with, by pure coincidence, the talking point that MSNBC got from the Democrats. That's incredible neutrality. In fact, it's so incredible, I don't believe it. I might have to go and get my tinfoil hat and be a conspiracy theorist, because I think that sounds totally ridiculous. And you know who else I think thinks that? The majority of American people who Democrats are treating like idiots.
Well, like I said, we'll find out when the election takes place. And by the way, your other point, and I'm going to let Dan go, is actually saying that there is an increase in support for women for Harris right now, because that's actually something I reported earlier today too. But Dan, it's your turn.
Yeah, no, okay, so I was able to say that I thought the debate was good because it was civil, and that was a good thing, right? Shaq makes some points. I think he's right. The media does exaggerate things against Vance, and is not similarly critical about Waltz, although Waltz deserves a lot of criticism for some of the things he said. I also stand by my comments about the need for humanitarian help for the people of the Carolinas, Georgia, other areas that were impacted by this terrible storm. I stand by my comments about the need for people of faith to stand up and help where they can. And and I also stand by my comments that I think it was unwise for the White House not to say anything about their support and concern for the people of North Carolina until days after the thing became an issue. I do know and understand how budgets work in FEMA and Homeland Security and others, and they have spent billions and billions of dollars ushering people across the border illegally and providing support for them in housing, food, subsidies, and other things, which is a drain on the budget for ordinary American citizens who need help in the time of crisis. The purpose of FEMA funds and Homeland Security funds are for the purpose of providing Homeland Security and for providing relief in the times of disasters. Homeland Security hasn't been providing Homeland Security. They've been actually creating Homeland Dissecurity. And then FEMA, it has been suffering because it has less money to be able to step in and help people when it comes to crises like North Carolina and other hurricanes that we're going to get throughout the rest of the year, which means they now have to turn to Congress for supplementals, which they wouldn't have had to do if they hadn't have wasted the money on people who shouldn't be here anyway. That's what I have to say.
Hey, just really quickly, I did see your hand, Rick, and everything. As one that has
So
actually
I want to go back to the beard thing. Hold on, let me talk about the beard thing for 1 second. So
yeah, you guys have
I
beards.
brought up the beard, and it wasn't. No, the deal is I have a shitty beard. I wish my beard looked better, but I look even worse without a beard because I don't have much of a chin. So I need to grow a hair chin. But Vance has a good looking beard. And I was just noting, it's interesting that this could be the first time in 100 years where we have a president or VP with a beard. It's just, I didn't say it's going to turn people off. His beard is much better than mine. I didn't say it's toxic masculinity. I don't know what he looks like without the beard, but I looked at it. He's got a sharp under chin shave line that looks good. It's full. So I don't have a problem with the beard. I don't think it's toxic masculinity. In my case, it's a choice. So I look less shitty. In his case, I don't know what his deal is. Maybe he looks better with a beard. Turns people off.
I didn't attribute the comment to you, Rick, though. I'm not. You don't need to defend yourself. I never said that you're the one that said the comment yesterday.
And nobody said it online. It was actually a comment.
All right. Okay.
It was a comment I was reporting from somebody else. So nobody actually brought it up and said it in our group and everything. I will say to you, Shaquille, I did see Toby's hand and everything, but I will say to you, Shaquille, if there is misappropriation, because I'm one of the few people here, I think Kim may have been involved in some similar situation, but if there was misappropriation, it will usually come out in the daylight at some point or another, because like I said, my mother was the head of the Golden Leaf Foundation, and ironically in a business that I am still involved with and everything, there was some misappropriation, and it was eventually found out, and that particular agency had to deal with the fact that they had. I'm not saying
the funds were misappropriated. No, hang on. I'm not saying the funds are misappropriated. That's not what I said. Kimberly made the point yesterday that she would prefer to see the money spent on helping the victims rather than being spent on, a presidential visit because of the costs involved. Well, it doesn't work like that. The money for presidential visits, they can't sit there and say, look, I would have visited, but instead I've taken the money out of that budget to give it to these victims. That's not how it works. When asked, Mayorkas has warned that FEMA is dangerously low on funds, and part of the report is that the funds for FEMA have been spent on emergency services for migrants. Now, again, this is not a problem which is unique to the United States. The United Kingdom is dealing with the same issue. Australia is dealing with the same issue. Canada isn't bringing it up as much as they used to, but the Canadian healthcare system, for example, people have been complaining for at least 5 or 6 years that I'm aware of in Canada, that the waiting lists have increased because of the large number of immigrants that have been brought in to Canada. So what I'm picking up from Democrats is that everybody else in the world can criticize their governments and say, hey, look, this is a bit of a problem. We need to look at this. We need to look at funding, except for Americans. In America, you guys are so partisan that if you guys are subject to the same kind of criticism that Western Europe has of their political system as the rest of the world, the Western world has of their political system, you guys are so sensitive that you're going to run out and try to defend things because you can't handle any kind of there's a problem here or our side might lose. And you have to gaslight and do your passive aggressive stuff. And personally, I find it surprising that you people are acting that way at the same time as you claim to care about your country. Because I think if you really cared about your country and really cared about unifying it, you would spend the time to find out why other people in your country, forget about me, I don't live there and I have no intention of ever living in the United States, but you would spend the time to find out why people don't agree with your viewpoints and see if you can reach compromises. And you're not prepared to do that because you guys want to make an enemy out of anybody who doesn't share your beliefs. And honestly, I think that is one of the most destructive things that you can do.
I think Toby has his hand up, and then I would like to say something because I did speak with some of the federal first responders last night. So go ahead, Toby.
Just a few things, and the term right here that we're going to highlight is gaslighting, because that is correct. What Shaq you just did was completely gaslight. Number one, you were the only one on this panel after the Trump debate that said Trump won. You were the only one that complimented and ignored everything that everyone else was saying, but went on and said, I'm happy to be that. You even bragged about that happening on the show that you were on, which was a right-wing show. So saying that, that's gaslighting. That's a lie. Number two, the way that the money is spent, we are ignoring the fact that this year has had numerous natural disasters, from wildfires to earthquakes to other hurricanes to other flooding. That's where the money is spent. That money also asking for extra money has happened before. Like last year when we had 23 of these major incidents and disasters where we had to request more funds from Congress. It's not illegal immigration. It's not undocumented workers that's causing the issues. It's actually the earth itself, where we're having to spend extra money on these natural disasters because they're getting bigger, they're getting wider, and the money that we're having to spend is a lot more than what we're talking about. So ignoring that fact is the definition of gaslighting the public, saying that we're going to make it the undocumented immigrants' fault when they have nothing to do with FEMA. Absolutely nothing to do with the pot of money that FEMA has. And it is Congress's job at this moment, just like they had to do last year, to actually increase funding to FEMA because it needs money to help these individuals. And with what Dan was talking about earlier, again, I want to reiterate the sentiment that Dan said. Talk about coming together, which is why I completely agree with what Dan said about coming together. I completely agree with what Dan said about Biden and Harris should have been out front in front of a camera, because at this moment, we need a showman. And that's what people were looking for right then. And that is spot on with what Dan said. We didn't know the stuff that was going in the background and all the actual monies, funding, and everything else, because we got gaslit by people like yourself, Shaq, who keeps trying to make this a political issue, pitting the people who are direly needing resources at this moment against illegal, undocumented workers that are trying to come across the border to find not only asylum, but a better life for themselves. That's not what we should be doing. We should be honest about the situation. Dan, you and I, we have completely different ideas around undocumented workers, but I think we could come to an agreement. And I don't ever want to pit myself against you. But again, gaslighting people is wrong. Saying that, oh, well, if you don't agree with, you're wrong. That is what you legitimately just said, Shaq. So please, let's not gaslight anymore. Let's look at solutions and moving forward of what we should do together to help not only the people of North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, even in Virginia and Florida and all the other places that got affected by this storm, because I even got notified that the same cloud strand that we were getting hit with in Durham was hitting Peoria, Illinois. That's how big this storm was. And it affected a lot of people. And it should not be something that we're sitting here saying, well, you know, we should blame all this problem on undocumented workers. And Shaq, let's share the stage, because you've answered after every single person. Let's allow somebody else to talk.
I would like an opportunity to speak, please. Thank you very much. You know, we've had a wonderful
go to Kim.
from the federal response team. That they are here help rescuing a lot of people. I met with them last night. They're exhausted. They're working 16 hours a day, plus having to drive to and from the command centers. They've done this many times with the forest fires, with any of the natural disasters. I've known these guys since I would go back as far as 2016. When I was working on some projects for their benefit. Now let's talk about something Shaq mentioned. Shaq, you don't know anything about the money that I was discussing and the resources. And I don't want a response back from you on this, because I'm very angry about all the gaslighting and propaganda that's being spread that hinders the real workers. And they are just right now, all their goal is trying to rescue anyone that's still alive. And all they keep doing is pulling out dead bodies. And to look in their eyes and see the disdain that they have to go through every time they read a post about somebody saying shit like this gets on my nerves. And I have just lost a handful of friends because I have put them in their place for saying things and using the tragedies of these people for a campaign platform, rather than getting off of their asses and getting out there and donating some resources and time. So now all I'm doing is posting, hey, just make sure you donate to a reliable resource. Okay, but let's talk about this. When you bring in anyone, including the governor, onto the scene of where the disaster has occurred, it's not the money you spend to get them there. It's the money and resources that have to stop to protect them and look after them and pay attention to them instead of paying attention to the situation. They have to shut down everything, stop, make sure everything's going good. So you're talking about more than 4 hours for a 1 minute to 2 minute visit at a site. But you know what? That's what the stupid public wants. They want to see their commander in chief standing in the middle of storm waters going, I'm here and we're going to give you all the support you need, rather than standing in the command center where it's safe, talking to the people and bringing in sources for them and cheering them on and hugging them and giving them the support and love they need. Because these guys, they had to leave their families and they're here night and day for over 2 to 3 months now, giving everything they have to save people. So I'm going to tell every one of you, unless you have worked at any one of these, unless you are donating time and money and you've got the books and know what the hell you're talking about, shut it up. Stop spreading the propaganda on this network. Stop gaslighting it. I am done. I am here to support them, to give them the support they need, and to help, not spread propaganda on the tragedies of these people. These people have been getting the support since day one without any interference, and they were very happy about it. No interference of people coming in and standing on the water saying, I'm here. They have been doing their work. The military is here, and guess what? We've managed to get up the cell sites now. You know what it had to take? It had to take unified people working, not spreading propaganda, reconnecting the landlines and the fiber networks to get those cell towers up. Because you know what? Like they like to explain to me, like I don't know, but they go, well, you know, we have to make sure that the fiber's connected so that the communication gets back to where it needs to go. And I go, yeah, I know, I built it. So hear me out on this. Stop arguing about it and start doing something about it. I spoke with someone I do business with in the private jet airline business, and they've been flying in provisions. They've not been propaganding and promoting themselves either. Nobody even knows who they are, but they've been flying in provisions. But they don't do it without calling and saying, hey, can I come in first? And if something's being rejected, it's because it's too dangerous to bring them in. Okay, so stop spreading that propaganda too. I've seen it all in the last week, and I'm sick of it. You know, if somebody says don't bring the provisions in right now, it's probably for your best interest. And yeah, the roads are going to be gone and probably not rebuilt. And I hope that they investigate the fracking and the lithium mining that's been going on up there, because somewhere, somehow, Mother Nature, who's always been able to hold her own through most of the storms up there in the mountains, has lost her ability. And the only comparison I can make it to is that when you inject your body with some kind of poison, it's going to erupt and the river's going to flow it out via vomit and any other way to cleanse you and make you healthy again. And what I see looks like Mother Nature going, I can't take anymore. So what I want us to do is unite. And for people who aren't living here and have no idea what our financials are, clam it, because you have no idea, and you misspoke what I said. Totally.
Then don't invite Sasha and myself on there.
He had time to speak, and if Nick is still around, he can. But I'm not going to let you explain yourself out of this one. There are other people who need to talk, but it's very disappointing.
Yeah, no, just keep the attacks coming, Kimberly. No worries. I'll just sit back and take it like you said.
Money. Put your money and mouth where you've been putting it. Donate money. And
I have. Actually, I have, Kimberly.
Shout outs. Hey, thank you, first responders. Hey, thank you, everyone. Thank you, the governor. You know, I'm not his biggest fan, but thank you for giving all the support you can to these people.
Like you guys didn't do when the situation was reversed. You don't want to let me respond. That's how sensitive you are about it. Well, so go to other people then. I'll just sit back.
You don't even know what you're talking about. I have donated every amount of spare time I have for any tragedy that happens around here. I give. Okay, so there is no reverse. Stop it. Stop campaigning.
No, I don't want to stop it. I've got a response, but you've clearly stated that you don't want to give me a chance to respond, as usual.
Because you've done nothing but make excuses and accuse me of things I haven't done.
I didn't accuse you of anything. I accused Democrats of doing something.
No, Kimberly, telling me
Kimberly,
that
I didn't accuse you.
World, I don't know what I'm talking about money-wise. When the funds come out of the budget, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Kimberly, I haven't accused you. I've accused Democrats and their media propaganda.
You're pitting people against each other during a disaster.
Our Prime Minister was over there. Our Prime Minister was over there in the. You don't want to hear anything, right? You don't want to hear anything. Change your name to Progressive TV and just have your way, because you don't want to hear any criticism at all from anybody about anything.
No, Shaq. I think you're missing the point. I think you're missing the point.
How do you know if I'm missing the point?
I think because your first comment was, "I'm blaming Democrats." When we're sitting here saying, trying to preach the same thing Dan said. Let's not pit each other against each other. Let's go ahead and try and figure a solution to help these individuals that are in dire straits. Let's help these people out that need it. When Dan came on yesterday, when Dan came on yesterday, and it was beautiful. Like I said, when he came out and said he had a choice, just like you have a choice. But Dan, in his heart, he's a good man, and said, "Hey, I think that we need to focus on helping these people. I think they need prayer. This is a place that you can donate, blah, 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 blah." He never in one iota said, well, I think I'm going to blame Democrats, and it was Democrats who did. That's what you did. You chose to pit people against each other. So instead of doing this in this tragic situation where there's a disaster, let's not go down the same path that we normally go down. We can do that on policy. We can do that on other things, but not during this natural disaster. Let's not play that game, because these people right now, like I said, and I have friends out there that just got power on, that just got cell phone service, and we found out that they're alive. So this is a personal issue. So don't tell me that blame Democrats when everybody's trying to help, regardless of Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, flying spaghetti monster person. It doesn't matter. They need help. So let's give it to them. When you demonize, blame Democrats, the Red Cross and all this other stuff, because that's out there right now, is that people are not wanting. I'm trying to explain to you something. When this misinformation and the pitting against each other gets out there, like right now, there is a current situation where the Red Cross is also starting to lose donations because people are saying that they're a part of the government and they're spending it on illegals. Just the words that came out of your mouth. So when we say these lies, they have power, especially during this disaster.
I also want to add,
any possibility I can respond, or no, or should I just go?
We need to start providing a home and place for many of these people to live. We need to start providing them that. I have a friend who is very, very wealthy and a big investor. He lost his part of his home. He's rebuilding it, and he realized many of these people don't have insurance, and that's what we were discussing last evening when I met with some of the people, and I spoke with my sister. Many of these people will not have insurance because they were not listed as in floodplain, and so they're not going to have a means to really rebuild. So what my friend wants to do is get people together and say, hey, let's take what money we can and funds we can and rebuild some houses or build new houses for these people. Let's stop the bickering, put our money together where we can, and he's willing to go out and get the resources to build one house at a time if we have to. But we need to unite together, stop bickering, stop accusing, stop trying to make somebody look wrong in a statement that they're saying. I've never said that we were taking from the presidential fund to fly out there. I said I would rather our money, time, and resources at the site be drawn to the attention where it needs to be drawn, which is what they had said last night as well, because they have to shut everything down. But what we need to do is look at how we can help. They need fresh water too. They need a lot of fresh drinking water, maybe even provide some of the solar power filtration generators that pull water out of rivers and filter and clean them. Donating those kind of resources would be a good thing. But we need to pull together to do that. They need homes right now. They need a place.
Unity is a big thing and everything. But just really quickly, and Jack, I did see that you probably had something, but I was going to get to one.
No, I think the audience will make note that I was told you're not allowed to explain yourself. I think the audience will make note of that, as usual.
I just wanted, because there was one other issue that I did not get to, and I was hoping I'd get to it. I'm just going to lay the groundwork out, and maybe we can talk about it tomorrow, because it's something that both you and Sasha and others would be interested in and know a lot more than I would. But I know a lot of the campaign, including the Trump campaign, has talked about tariffs, and Europe voted to raise tariffs on electric cars from China. So that's something that hopefully we were going to get to, and how that's going to impact folks, and maybe even the voting situation and everything. So I don't know if you want to jump in or Sasha wants to jump in.
We got 5 minutes left, and you're not going to let me respond to any of the stuff that's been leveled at me so far. We're going to change over to a completely different subject.
I'd like to hear what Nick
And
has
and,
to
and
say
Kimberly,
he
I'll
has
just
not
note
been
for the
here.
audience. I'll just note for the audience that
Nick is here.
yesterday you
You've had
said
20
that I'd be given a
minutes.
chance to respond to yesterday's
The
comment.
whole show
And now
I've heard you
today
talk. I
you're
would
telling me
like
I
to
should wait
hear
till
Nick.
Monday after you and Jatovia spent all that time having a crack at me, and you don't want to hear one word.
No, I don't. Nick, it's your
Yeah, good.
turn.
Mute me then. Good.
Nick, it's your turn. I'm muting people. in the
Oh,
house.
the tariffs. It hadn't even made the news here. The big news, and by the way, your hurricane that happened over there barely makes the news here. So it may be big over in North Carolina, but people in Europe, they don't give a rat's for. What made the news here, by the way, is Lebanon and the Israeli bombardment and invasion of Lebanon. That's pretty big over here right now. And in terms of the tariffs, no one gives a rat's for about the tariffs over here. So the big news right here in Europe is the Middle East, and it deals with Lebanon. And maybe Sasha has something to say about that, the war in the Middle East. That's pretty big over here.
Nick, I'm aware that you're in Spain right now, and
I'm in Barcelona, yeah.
in Barcelona, which is Spain so far.
it is Spain.
And it could be different in the future, but so far it's part of Spain. But I would like to ask you, Nick, are you aware that Spain is the only country in the world that allow Palestinians to celebrate October 7th, just in 3 days from now? Are you aware of it or not?
No, I'm not.
You're not. Well, Israel
really
stops
makes
any
sense.
relationship, diplomatic and otherwise, with Spain, and so are many countries are considering to do that.
Yeah, it didn't make the news here, but there was a group of Palestinians outside my window, walking up and down doing this thing called protesting, which Mark knows I hate. Because I think
you
it's a
hate
waste of
protesting
time.
and everything.
And I know the civil rights area was a big thing, but for me, it's like, get over it.
No, but protest is how we get things done and everything. We only got 2 minutes to go and everything. Hey, Nick, we've only got 2 minutes to go. I did have one legal question for you as well and everything, because one of the things I'm hearing, and I'm guessing it's because of the immunity, is that the Supreme Court might be actually how Eric Adams gets off of what he's going through and everything, because that's another news story that I was hoping to get to today and everything. So is that immunity case, that it's not just going to be federal immunity, but it could be immunity from a state person as well? Because they're saying that the Supreme Court could be how he managed to get off. So I'm guessing that's that immunity.
It's possible. I don't know the facts that much about the Eric Adams case. It briefly hit the news here, but what they discuss over here in Europe is totally different than the United States. And good luck at finding English-speaking television. I mean, it's really tough. So I have to listen to Pod TV where everything else is.
But you should do very well in Europe to find Russian-speaking television.
Actually,
there's a lot of channels, and all the useful idiots and not so useful idiots, they can all flock in, learn Russian, and listen to beautiful Russia Today television.
Yeah, well, I met with a Russian a couple of days ago. She was trying to scam me on some real estate. So that's what makes it. You really have to have real estate courses in the United States. There's so many scams, and it's international. It's not just scamming in the United States. It's scamming over in Spain. And there's I have a whole story, because I think I can figure this out pretty quick. I've been in business 40 years, about how they're trying to screw people over, especially real estate brokers. Because remember, in transactions, they say the real estate broker represents the buyer or the seller. The reality is they represent themselves. And one guy who was in the industry told me that, and they're absolutely right. The real estate broker does not represent the buyer, does not represent the seller. They represent themselves. And they interpose themselves here and bring up the prices about 10 to 20%. But I'm learning all the real estate games as I'm doing acquisitions here. So it's kind of interesting.
Nick, I do have a quick question. I got a quick question that you can fit in these 30 seconds. Because every news outlet has a fluff story, and I'm super curious what the fluff story, that happy-go-lucky story that you found that's really odd over there.
There really isn't any. I mean, everything here is pretty dry, and they're into sports, but the sports they're into is football, and the football is soccer, and then that's it. American baseball that you like, Jatovia, stuff it. Okay, hockey, forget it. Football, that's it. Okay, so that is the sport. As a matter of fact, I can't even watch American football here. I got to go sign on tonight to get a VPN to get into ESPN because they just don't see it.
Has cricket taken off there?
Soccer.
No, cricket's not big here. It's soccer. That's it. And, you know, so if you're not doing soccer, you're not doing anything.
Hey, Nick, they love their bands and marching bands around there, and they're always doing all kinds of celebrations every weekend with their.
Oh yeah, there's a celebration tomorrow. They love parties, so I'm going to.
I know. I had so much fun the few days I was in Spain. So, but every day is a celebration there.
Yeah, there's a party tomorrow. There's always some saint somewhere who died or lived, and they're always celebrating some saint.
I want to see the photos of Nick partying. That's what I want to see. I want to see some party Nick photos.
Yep, we will see Nick party photos on Monday. We have to sign off. May everyone stay safe this weekend. Please send your prayers, donations, money, whatever, to the North Carolina Hurricane Fund. Give them support. Give your love and support to the first responders who are suffering and struggling right now to save every life. I love all of y'all. And don't forget to say prayers and remembrance of all those who lost their lives on October 7th. Take care.